I bet that Jane Baker's a lurker. Okay, right, 7:30, time to start. Welcome, one and all. The first item on the agenda is a public discussion of items on the agenda. I know we say this every time. It's a rather strange way of doing things, but excuse me. In theory, well, in practice as well, members of the public can't discuss anything during the meeting on items on the agenda. So instead, you need to make your contributions at this point in the meeting. But we're very lucky that Lydia Dunn has come along. She's from Clive Miller Planning, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about the application for shepherd's huts, which are going to be in Pibble Pen, off Pibble Pen Lane. So we put this on the agenda, and I thought it would be a good idea to put it on the agenda at this point, so that everyone can ask questions of Lydia, and then we can have a decision on whether we agree with the planning application or not later on on the agenda. So I suggest we start with Lydia. Would you like to give us an outline of what you're proposing, Lydia, please?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it really short, actually, because it's mainly for the huts themselves. So yeah, this application is for the stationing of up to 4 shepherd's huts to provide holiday accommodation. I think the plan at the moment is that Abby will just start with 1 this season. I think she's only thinking of 1 to start off with, and then maybe adding the second next season. It's a very small, low impact proposal. There's very little in the way of kind of infrastructure. It's mainly the huts themselves. I mean, as you probably know, this sort of accommodation has become really popular recently, particularly in this part of the world. And we're expecting the demand to remain strong, and I'm sure it will continue even after COVID, if such a time comes. I think the huts are going to be aimed primarily at couples. You know, each one only accommodates 1 or 2 people, so I think they're probably mostly going to be couples, and the sort of people who are looking for a really kind of quiet rural retreat. The proposal does include parking to the northeast of the site. As you probably know, that part of the site is actually in South Somerset. That part of the application has just been granted, so this bit is just for the huts part. We just, I mean, you know, we just hope that the huts will be a really attractive addition to the farm, and very much part of, you know, the farm's kind of ongoing diversification. And yeah, as I say, I'm really happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. It's open to anyone.
I've got a question. In terms of toilets and shower facilities, how will they be supplied to the hut?
I think the huts are fitted with a shower and a toilet.
So have you actually got mains going to the huts themselves? Mains
yeah, there will be water, yeah.
And how would they be powered?
I think it's electric. I don't think they're solar panels, these ones. I think they will be attached to the mains.
So you've got electric mains going to them and water mains going to them as well?
I believe so.
What about the sewage?
So that's, there's a package treatment plant planned for that, which I think is shown on the plans. It's between the hut that's a bit more by itself and then the other 3.
Right.
Sue?
Well, I haven't actually had a chance to look at the plans, but will the access to the shepherd's huts be where the current access is to Dairy Farm Cottage, or is there going to be a separate roadway built for them?
There's no separate roadway. Hold on, let me just get the site plan up. I think that they'll come in, I think they're coming in via Dairy Cottage, and they're putting a
Right.
new pedestrian gate in through the hedgerow just to the front of Dairy Cottage.
I see. And the parking, because obviously they'll need to have, you know, parking area for them.
Yeah, so as I said, the parking is going to be provided up by the farm buildings, just to the northeast of Dairy Cottage, and I think it's an area that's already used for parking by some of the farm workers in particular, and I think that some of those spaces are going to be accommodated elsewhere on the farm.
Oh, I see. Do you mean on the opposite side of the road to Dairy Cottage, or
yes, exactly on the opposite side?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. So as I say, that was the subject of a separate planning application that was put in South Somerset, and that one, as I say, just been granted this week.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I think it's that big area. So as you walk down Pibble Pen, on the right-hand side, you know, that where it goes into the farm, there's that very large space out there, which is much bigger than they need for just the farm entrance. So that's what
yes, I know exactly where you mean now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Will this be a year-round thing, Lydia?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that one. No, it's exactly the question I was about to ask. Go ahead.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, shepherd's huts often, you know, can be let all year round because they're a bit more substantial than, you know, tents and things like that. And very occasionally people, you know, strangely do want to go and stay in them at Christmas. But, you know, actually off season, the ground is quite wet and they're not really as much fun in the off season. So I'm not 100% sure, but I suspect it is going to be much more focused on the high season than in the off season.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Lydia, for coming along.
Yeah, and
we haven't dug into your evening too much. So you can rush out to the wine box now. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, are there any other issues on the agenda that you would like to discuss? Martin.
Yes, I just wanted to make a point about the item on the lengthsman.
Yes.
Following the last meeting where you had a discussion on lengthsman and decided at that time against going forward, I felt that there was an opportunity for villagers to volunteer to do some work in the village. And within the first week, I identified the leaves in the pound that had been lying there for about 3 or 4 years, around by the seat. And I took a wheelbarrow down and a shovel and cleared it up. And obviously you've seen from Facebook that a lot of villagers have been going out collecting the rubbish that is actually on the verges in Letcher Lane and Pibble Pen Lane. So I think if you decide against formally appointing a lengthsman, that we could have a rota of residents who would be willing to do little jobs like picking up litter as part of a rota.
Thank you, Martin. Any other comments or questions? No? Quite sure? Your last chance. Okay, right. Well, I will then move on to the formal bit of the meeting, which is for the councillors only. We don't have any apologies, do we, Jane?
Only from Alex Bishop.
Oh, Alex Bishop, of course, yes. We haven't got Rebecca yet, have we?
No, I haven't seen her.
No. Okay. Well, no doubt she'll be with us fairly soon. Any declarations of interest? Eve, yes, Eve. Okay, you're declaring an interest
The planning.
on item 6A, yes? Thank you. Right, item 2 then, minutes. Can somebody approve the minutes of the meeting of the 13th of January? They have been circulated, obviously, in their draft form, and they've been up on the notice board. Can somebody propose, please?
I propose.
Jonathan proposes, seconded by... I'll second. Oh, no.
All right, we've got Yvonne.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
I look,
Who
your
was the
little
seconder?
hand is... Yvonne,
Thank you, Yvonne.
I can't see your hand, Yvonne, so
I did.
ask for it. Thank you. Right, item 3, matters arising from the minutes and raised by members. Pipplepen Farm, solar farm project. We have had the planning application submitted by Elgin Energy to Dorset Council and to South Somerset Council. As far as we're aware, they've not yet been made public. That's correct, isn't it, Jane?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so that must mean that it's imminent then, I guess.
Indeed.
Next one is Britain in Bloom. B, can you update us on that, please?
Not had much success at the moment because of the lockdown in
Sure.
sort of gathering information from different individuals. So I'm proposing that we leave it until the lockdown lifts and I can get a few people together to go through it and discuss it in more detail with them.
Okay, super. Thank you very much. Tree planting scheme, Jill.
Yeah, quick report. We had 200 trees and shrubs delivered on the 6th of February. And they were very promptly planted by all the people that had volunteered to give them homes in their gardens. Mostly private because we didn't really recognise any public spaces that were suitable. But 3 have been planted in Pipplepen Lane, just above School Hill on the right, where there was a tree removed earlier in the year. And if you walk up there, you'll see them with their little protective plastic spirals. So I'm hoping they'll survive. I've got 3 in my little tree nursery behind the greenhouse waiting to be planted in the village hall car park now that the fence has been removed. And we're hoping to have a little tree planting ceremony there once we're allowed to meet up after lockdown. So we look forward to that. The total cost was £186 which was well under the budget that the council proposed of £500 way back in the autumn. And that's thanks to the Beminster Eco Group that supplied the trees and the stakes and the spirals at minimal cost. And the Eco Group did a lovely little write-up for us in their monthly newsletter, along with a photograph with myself, Angela and Jane, who were distributing the trees after Mike Dower brought them. So very successful. Thank you very much to everybody that has supported the project. And we were also approached by Corscombe Parish Council, who I've been able to advise, and they are now carrying out a tree planting scheme. So the word is spreading around West Dorset. So thanks everyone for your support.
Well, I think thanks to you, Jill, really. Well done. Terrific
Yeah,
job.
thank you, Jill.
Yeah, well done, Jill. Thank you very much,
Perfect.
Jill.
Thank you very much.
Okay, road narrow sign, Picket Lane, A356 junction, 30-mile-an-hour signs at end of Letcher Lane, SIDS. Jane, can you give us an update on how things are going?
I can. The new road narrows sign you've probably seen is up, and so far as I'm aware, hasn't been damaged in any ways. So I thank Blair Turner from Dorset Council for arranging that for us. Hopefully it will do the task. The next one, the Picket Lane A356 junction. We agreed to have yellow markings on that junction. They are going to happen, but the people, Dorset Council, have said it will have to wait for the weather to improve, so there's no chance of any frost or any other damage because they can't do the work at the time. They assure me it will be done, and if I don't hear from them by the beginning of April, to get in touch. So that's a work in progress. The 30-mile-per-hour signs on Lecture Lane have been fixed, and I think they've done a very good job on those. They seem very well secured. And on the SID, I spoke to Rob Camp of Dorset Council just today, who tells me that they've been delayed due to COVID and having their visits cut short. But he is coming out next Friday, the 19th, to mark up the posts. After that, we will get a quote for the work to install the posts, and we can then, or if we're happy with that, we will then install or order and install the SID. They've decided that the traffic survey is not necessary because they've got enough evidence to justify a SID on the hill into the village, which is good news because it will save us some money on the project. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Jane. Litter bins. No, they haven't, as far as I'm aware, appeared yet. They haven't appeared, have they? Anyone seen 2 extra litter bins? No. Jane, do you know what's happening with them?
They've all ordered and they are imminent. I'm expecting them any day.
Right.
They've been paid for. They know where to put them. It's all been agreed. So it's a case of when the team get out here to put them into the right position. So any day at all.
But they really need to tell us when they're coming, don't they? Because we need somebody to be there to make sure that it's...
Absolutely. And I'll check again with them. I do it twice a week, but so far I don't have a date, but I'm on the case for it.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right. We now move on to item, unless there's any comments from anybody in that lot. No. Item 4, casual vacancy. We're very glad that Jill Denny has put her name forward, a new member of the village, but anyone who comes into the village and is keen to join the parish council, we're more than welcome to come along. And please, Jill, could you just give us a few words of encouragement to say who you are and where you come from and what you're going to offer? How about that?
All right, okay. Well, I grew up in Ringwood, which I'm sure most of you know where that is down the road a bit. But then I've lived the last 20 years in Northumberland, another rural area. We wanted to move back down to the south of England because that's where I came from. And after lots of searching for houses, I think I've been to every single little village in West Dorset and South Dorset and Wiltshire around the area, and finally we found the place in the South Perrott. Both Mark and I think once we settled here, it's the best place. We couldn't have wanted anywhere better to settle down, and it's just reminded me of my childhood and the lanes and the British countryside where I grew up in Ringwood near the New Forest. And I've had the most amazing welcome from people in the village. As you know, my garden borders onto the little lane and everybody can see me in my garden, and I've had lots of chats and made friends, and I hope to make better friends once lockdown's finished. It really is a wonderful place to live. So with time on my hands, I want to give something back to the village, and I thought this vacancy came up and thought, yeah, I'd like to do that. So I've got a passion for the countryside. I want to maintain the countryside and the rurality of everything, if that's a word. But I really want to, you know, to do my all to make this place a lovely place, continuing lovely place to live.
Thank you, Jill.
In a nutshell, really.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm just passionate about it all.
Okay, we now have to move to a vote. Those of us who are here in their capacity as councillors. So all those in favour of adopting Jill as a member of the council, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Unanimous. You're unanimously voted on, Jill.
Oh,
from now on, you can speak freely.
I can speak freely, right? Thank you. You'll probably regret that in the future.
Yeah, okay, that's enough. Welcome. That's good news. The more people we can get to contribute, the better. Got to be. Okie dokie. Let's move on to item 5 then, which are the reports from the Dorset Councillor, who I still don't see. Rebecca?
No, she's not on.
No. Okay. We didn't receive anything in writing, so I'm afraid we won't be receiving a report from her. We have had a report from Alex Bishop, the local policeman, and you will all have seen that, except for you, Jill, probably. But for the benefit of all those who are not on the council, I think it's right that I should draw your attention to a couple of things that he says. One is that a tractor was stolen from an isolated barn in Mosterton last Monday. So in all seriousness, if you do have any machinery, make sure that you keep it safe, and please be vigilant, he says, and report any suspicious activity to us, that's him, on 101 or 999 if you believe a crime is in progress. The other bit is an interesting one, and it may be that Marion will say something about it. You all know about the flood in the bridge in Pipplepen Lane. That's going to come up later on as well. But Marion and various other people, including Jill and myself, noticed that there was a lot of suspicious looking material appearing at the farm gates close to the flooded area underneath the bridge. And some of this suspicious material looked like potentially drug taking. So certainly Pipplepen Farm noticed a great deal of activity in cars going down the lane very late at night. So eventually the police were called, and they attended in police speak and spoke with 5 occupants of 2 vehicles about COVID breaches. That's as far as they got. Now, I happen to know that Marion, subsequent to that, has been down there and discovered that there's still rubbish there. So they're clearly still going down there. Marion, do you want to add a quick word? I know it's...
Yeah, I mean, because the other night we saw them go down, right? It just gave them the benefit of the doubt of being the idiots who wanted to drive through the water. But it was quite late at night and I actually fell asleep, sort of thing. So, you know, what we have noticed is also they no longer sit down there with the lights on, so we can't see them, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I did collect about 8 or 9 booze bottles and cans, and some more of those little silver canisters that they'd thrown into the field. I actually got over the gate and picked them up because Trevor's got sheep in the field, and I just thought, well, I can get over the gate, I'll retrieve them. So I've disposed of all of those in the appropriate manner. But we have been speaking to the North Perrott policeman. His name's Simon, and I've forgotten what his surname is, but he was the one who did actually come out and give words of wisdom down there.
Okay.
Quite quickly after we highlighted it on a North Perrott Parish meeting.
Okay. Well, it is, as you rightly point out, it's not within our parish boundary, but nevertheless, they're obviously using Pipplepen Lane to get down there. So, in one sense, it is of relevance to us. Any comments from any other councillors? Okay. Right, moving on then. Martin, River Warden report, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We've had a couple of unusual instances in the river, relating to the river, over the last couple of months. The first one was on the 6th of February when we had a oil spillage in the river. Domestic oil had leaked into the river, and there was a very strong smell of oil, and there was a slick visible on the surface of the water. I reported this to the Environment Agency on their incident hotline, and they did look into it, but I think they felt that it wasn't of a very serious nature, because in their mind, they said there were no sensitive areas downstream that could have been impacted by the oil pollution. So I think it's probably something to do with the fact that we are so far up the river and there are hardly any fish at all in the river, that there are no sensitive areas here. And the second one was a local resident was concerned about possible pollution from farmyard manure in the river, again towards the top end of the river. But as luck would have it, we had some heavy rainfall following that, and it's quite likely that any of that pollution was dispersed. But the local resident did report it to the Environment Agency so that they were aware of the situation. Can I now go on to the South Perrott Reservoir issue?
Yes.
We are aware that the Environment Agency is planning to carry out some works to the reservoir at the end of the Engineers Road. And this is because a recent inspection of the reservoir has identified a number of improvements and maintenance requirements under the Reservoirs Act 1975. The implications for the village are that there is going to be a lot of activity in and around the reservoir between May and September or October of this year. Basically, there will be a lot of vehicle movements through the village, which will then be using the Engineers Road to access the site. And the Environment Agency have already carried out some clearance of trees and undergrowth to afford access to the site. And these works will be quite extensive. They will include laying a land drain with a new outfall in the river at the bottom of the spillway, and some of that work may impact on the Millennium Green. They're then going to put a concrete curb at the top of the spillway, or the crest of the spillway, and they are then going to lay open concrete erosion protection blocks for the first 50 meters of the spillway from the top end. Now, these concrete blocks are the blocks that you see that have holes in them, where you can actually plant grass seed after the completion of the work. And the expectation is that the grass will provide a surface to hide the concrete underground, but it will provide a strong surface to the spillway. They're going to put a couple of steps either side of the embankment at the top of the spillway, and then they're going to provide some extra nesting and bat boxes in the area and plant some trees to offset the carbon which is generated from the works and the making of the concrete blocks. So they've given us this advance notice. Obviously, I feel that it's important that as many of the residents know what's going on, because they will see evidence of lorry movements up there. I'm hoping that they will be able to put something in the pump and pound, which will be out at the end of this month. And obviously that goes to every house. But I felt that I ought to draw attention to the parish council so that you are actually aware of what is being proposed.
Thank you very much, Martin. Any questions on that for Martin?
Could you just repeat the dates for me, Martin?
Yes, works are due to commence in May of this year, and they're likely to last until September or October.
Oh, right, okay, thank you.
So they're obviously waiting for the dry season and they will be carrying out the works at the driest time of the year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tell me about this curb, Martin. That sounds a bit ominous. What is that along the top?
Yes, it's a levelling spillway crest area using a concrete curb.
Right. Do you know what that means?
I'm not sure. I've asked for a plan showing the proposals in more detail, which they will let me have, because they are likely to be carrying out land drainage or laying a land drain very close or just inside the Millennium Green that will run the full length of the hedge that currently separates the Millennium Green from the spillway.
Right.
That will then lead to a new head wall that will be constructed in the river, basically almost opposite where the caravan currently is.
Right.
So where the field with the caravan in at present does slope down to the river, and there's a little there. The other side of the river, there will be a new head wall that will take the water from this new land drain.
I'm conscious of a number of people, including myself, who walk along there with their dogs. Are we going to be prevented from access?
I think they will be closing certain areas, but they will be intending to provide diversions.
Okay.
And originally they were talking about definitely closing the bridleway, the River Perrott Trail, and not providing a diversion, but possibly closing the footpath which runs through the Millennium Green, but they would be providing the diversion for that. But any more than that at present, I don't know.
Okay.
But I suspect that any diversions of footways or bridleways would have to be agreed with Dorset Council.
They would indeed, yes. Yeah. Yeah, Sue, I mean, this relates to you as well. You're on mute.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I was just about to say, you know, I'm really concerned to hear that they aren't intending to divert the bridleway whilst the work's being done. And I'd like to know if that would be temporary, just while they're doing the work, or permanent, because the Perrott Trail is a very, very important trail, as we know, starting at the source of the River Perrott and terminating where it enters the sea near Bridgewater. It's used very regularly. I know that there's also an annual race that takes part on that, so it's a very important trail. And so I am very concerned to hear that. Yes, if it's just temporary for the time that the works are being done, fair enough. Now, the footpath through the Millennium Green, I wasn't aware if that was an official one or whether it was one that we have just used historically, because looking at the footpath map, which I'm afraid I haven't actually got in front of me at this moment, but I thought there was just the one path, which was actually the bridle path, which actually went through, that comes out, obviously it goes up the river, as we know, which isn't ideal, and there's been the permissive path to take us round that. But
So
then I thought it went
explain,
up the part which runs parallel to the hedge on what I would call the southern side of the Millennium Green, and then came out, and you know the rest of it, I'm sure, where the stile is. So perhaps we need to find out more about that, and I'll certainly liaise with Russ, who's the council's footpath officer, because again, that has an impact.
Yes, in reality, Sue, the Perrott Trail, the footpath that is called the Perrott Trail at this location, runs through the Millennium Green. So
it actually does run through the Millennium Green.
That is a public footpath, and that is part of the River Perrott Trail. The bridleway runs through the spillway.
Right.
And it's the bridleway that obviously will be affected quite seriously by their proposed works along the spillway.
Yeah, but
so they had discussed diverting the bridleway through the Millennium Green, and the trustees were not very happy with that proposal. because of obvious possible damage to the Millennium Green. So I think that they will make sure that the footpath at least is maintained or slightly diverted. But all of these diversions would be temporary.
They will be temporary, because just hearing what you
Just
said
during
about the Millennium Green and the fact, well, I won't go into that now, but if there is a footpath, you know, I have had concerns about being able to traverse that comfortably when the grass is left to grow during the summer period, and it gets to being about sort of 5 foot high almost. But we won't talk about that now, but I'm pleased it is temporary.
Okay, any other comments about the Millennium Green diversion or the spillway? Okay, let's move on then to Sue's report herself,
which is a fairly scant one at the moment. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've seen it. I sent something rather belatedly to Angela to append to the minutes, but I expect most of you know now that following my accident a month ago, I'm afraid I haven't been able to walk any of the footpaths and bridleways for the last month. So I haven't been able to assess what's been going on. However, as I've become slightly more mobile and I've been going out and about on my crutches, I'm pleased to say I have had the opportunity to speak to many of you, particularly lots of our newest incumbents, who have been walking the footpath. And apart from the usual comments that, my goodness, they're muddy at the moment and it's slippery, which obviously is due to where we live in the west of England in particular, I mean, quite honestly, I haven't had any reports of any problems. Before my accident, this would have been 6 weeks ago, I did have a complaint from somebody that where some fields had been cut back on the top end of Langmore Lane, there were branches left lying across the path, which was causing an obstruction. However, since then, nobody else has commented. So I presume that has now been cleared, and that was just temporarily. So that's good.
No, it's not. It's not cleared,
No,
Sue. What's happened is that, well, they cleared the bit that was blocking, and then they moved further down the lane and cut back all the foliage there, which they've left. And I don't. It must have been at least a week or longer when they did the cutting.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know who's is the farmer responsible.
Well, I would say they are to move it if they're cutting it back. I mean, do we know which one? Is it the leg side, the legs land, or?
Well, it's both sides of Langmore Lane.
Both sides.
Mm.
Because I know obviously where the field boundaries are. I know one side's legs, part of it, depending on how high up it is Anne's. But
well,
I mean,
you know,
obviously I can speak to the farmers, but there again, it's important. We need to find out exactly whose farms.
Well,
because yes, they should clear it. If they're cutting it back, then they should make sure the path is clear.
I mean, I haven't got too excited about it because they did clear away the other lot eventually, you know, and you still can get through. It's
right.
You know, it's not total obstruction. In fact, what I've done is I've used a sort of a different path to avoid the mud, you know, where they cut the foliage back.
Well, if it's not a big problem, maybe
it's not a big problem.
See if it clears
it's not
again.
a big problem. I don't think it's a big problem. Okay, thanks very much, Sue.
Well,
that's
nothing
terrific.
much else to say. Other than please, everybody, give me feedback if you need to.
Yeah.
And keep walking.
Yeah. Well, and you.
And I can't wait to join you. Really can't.
Okay, good. Okay, thanks very much, Sue. Okay, let's move on then with your agreement to item 6, which is planning. Eve will leave us now if she hasn't already. Okay, item 6A is the coach and horses. Well, it's an ongoing saga, isn't it, really? I need to remind everybody, and this includes members of the public, that comments need to be in by the 14th of March. There have been a larger number of comments made, and it's going through the process. we have been grateful for the appointment of a gentleman called Ross Leal, who's been appointed on a temporary basis as the senior planning officer, and a new enforcement officer. And these two gentlemen, or certainly Ross, has been very active in contacting us, which is one of the things that we've been complaining about for a year now. And he has gone out of his way to get in touch with us and find out exactly what our issues are. We have, over the last month or two, written to Councillor Spencer Flower, who is the leader of Dorset Council, and also to Mark Prosser, who's the Chief Executive of Dorset Council, and we made a formal complaint to him on the grounds that we simply have been ignored for the last year or so. 2 weeks ago, we received a detailed reply from Anne Collins, who is the area manager. Her title is Area Manager, Western and Southern Planning and Community Services. So presumably she's quite senior. And she gave us what she considered to be a detailed account of what had happened over the previous 12 months. But unfortunately, I'm afraid her letter contained a number of errors. Errors which I'm afraid have been spread by two people like Spencer Flower and Mark Prosser, and they are spreading incorrect information. The one that I think is the most important is the fact that they are claiming that we wrote to them on the 6th of March last year. But in fact, we wrote to them on the 10th of February last year. And we got an email back from them to confirm that we'd submitted that element of our complaint on the 10th of March, 10th of February, I beg your pardon. So that was one error. And we've also asked for more evidence of visits that they have made regarding enforcement. But so far we haven't had any information about that. We do know that an enforcement officer visited in the middle of the year, but we've never seen what that letter said. We've written to Chris Loader, and he has met with members of Dorset Council regarding planning issues this week, but we haven't heard anything back from him. I have to say that this is not unique to our village. The fact is that there are a large number of villages in Dorset where planning is an issue, and rightly or wrongly, the Dorset Council have limited funds, limited personnel, and so they haven't been able to investigate and enforce planning applications. Now, that, if dare I say, is not our problem. We've done what we do as a parish council, which is to express our opinions on a planning issue. That's been put forward, and we have recommended that the proposed plans for the Coach and Horses go to the planning committee. And that recommendation was adopted by Rebecca Knox, but it still has not gone to the planning committee. Now, what's happened in the meantime, of course, is that the council failed to ask the owners of the Coach and Horses to put up a planning application notice. Well, we also said to them, why haven't they put up a planning application notice? And Dorset Council said they don't need to. Well, that's wrong. As a result, there is now a Dorset planning application notice in the window of the Coach and Horses. It's put things back, which is why we're able now to make comments until the 14th of March. So if you haven't made a comment, you are entitled to do so. Go onto the website, make a comment if you wish. You've got until the 14th to do so. I haven't got anything more to say on that issue. Would anyone else on the council like to say something?
Nothing from me, David. I think you've summed it up perfectly.
Yeah, nothing from me either, David. I don't know what else we can do, or you seem to have done. Well, everybody seems to have done as much as they can do at the moment.
Thank you. Okay. Jill, it's probably a bit too soon for you to comment.
No, I have said that I will. I haven't made a comment on the planning website yet, but I will do so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. New app.
David, I'm just going to announce.
Sorry.
Yvonne Harris back in.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. I beg your pardon. Yeah.
Welcome back, Yvonne.
Welcome back, Yvonne.
Can't see you.
Oh,
there you are.
Thank you. We've got B, decisions notified by Dorset Council since last meeting. Jane?
No, nothing.
Thank you. New applications to be considered. Right. Well, we've had information on Dairy Cottage, Purple Pen Lane. Comments there by the 23rd of March, please. Now, could I have your views, please, as a council on the proposal? Who wants to go first? John?
I am quite happy with it. It seems as farming isn't what it used to be. Tourism is something that Dorset should support, and as a parish councillor, I can't see any impact on the village particularly. It may bring in some extra money in the local area. It certainly will, because generally quite affluent people rent those kind of properties. Very low ecological impact, and as long as they're plumbed in correctly, I see no problem with it at all.
Thank you. Right, B?
Yeah, my main concern was the main supplies going to it, like the sewage and that. But I think if they're going to have a septic tank in the ground there, that should take care of that. And the other concern was the parking, but I think they answered the questions on the parking in terms of using the farmers parking at the moment. So I haven't got any objection to it at all.
Thank you. Eve, you're on mute.
Thanks. I didn't have any problem with the shepherd's hut.
Okay, thank you. Jill?
No, I think it's a good idea.
Right, I'm strongly in favour of it as well. So could I have a vote? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, Jane?
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Rowan Tree Cottage. Now you've had the plans for that. Anybody want to make any comments? Seemed like a very attractive plan to me. I couldn't see it. I don't think it's going to be. It'll hardly be visible. I wouldn't have thought from the road. It looked like a very nice way of increasing the size of the property, and I could understand exactly why they want to do it. Any other comments from anyone?
Yeah, no objection from me at all.
Okay, thank you.
No objection from me either. Fine.
All those in favour of recommending acceptance, raise your hand, please.
Thank
you.
you.
Right, tree applications. Moen House has been approved, and Picket Farm. What's that one then, Jay?
That's it's a prior application they've put in for the formation of some agricultural tracts on the land, and they put this in to see if they need to put in a formal planning application or whether they can just do it anyways. And there's been no response to that yet, no answer on that.
Okay.
So they want to do this work, but they're seeing if they can just do it or whether they have to actually apply to do it.
Is that in anticipation of some shepherd's huts?
Sorry, Jonathan, this is Picket
Farm.
I think that's in preparation as to whether or not they can then get some huts on there as well. I may have heard that as a rumour. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Right. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, you might not want to minute that bit then.
Okay. It didn't say why. It just said to form formation of agricultural tracts was what's on the application.
Okay.
Well, it's a bit of a, what are we supposed to do, Jane?
I was just informing you, really. I don't think there's anything we need to do at the moment about it because, you know, unless we object strongly, I could let them know. But I mean, they probably can just get on and do it if it's permitted. And if not, they'll come to us and let us know.
Okay. Well, I think I mean, we have so little information. It's a bit difficult to make any kind of comment, isn't it? Really?
It is, absolutely.
So I think perhaps we could go back to them and say, you know, if with a bit more information, we might be able to make some useful, constructive comments, either for or against. But as it stands, it's a bit difficult.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go back to them and let you know what the outcome is.
Okay, thank you. This is not on the agenda, but a number of people complained to me, and I think to other councillors, about the potential development, or what it seemed like a development, at the western end of the village. As you come into the village on the left-hand side, there was, once the foliage of the trees went, there was this sort of huge edifice which appeared, a skeletal edifice, if I can put it that way. So I contacted the owner of the field, and his name is Zach Anderson, and he restores old tractors, and he is slowly developing the field to accommodate these old tractors and to provide him with the space in which to work on them. He is very conscious of his relationship with the village. He's aware of the fact that he does make noise, and he's trying as best he can to be as quiet as he can. But of course he does work full-time as a farmer, and therefore he's only got limited time in which he can do this kind of work. But anyway, as I say, he's very conscious of public relations with the village, and he's very sensitive to our needs and awareness. The skeletal building that you can see will at some stage be enclosed, because that's where he wants to put his tractors. Now, as I understand it, this is an agricultural development and therefore will not require planning permission. But I'm open to be corrected on that. He is at the moment putting in a kind of roadway, and in doing that, he's having to use a JCB, which he knows is a bit noisy, but he apologizes for that and hopes that we'll live with that, but it'll only be a very short-term thing. So that's the position as I understand it. Nothing to worry about. It will never be used for accommodation. He's got no plans to build any buildings on it. It's simply so that he's got space to work on his tractors. Any comments or questions? I'm happy to answer them as best I can.
I think I'd like to seek the advice of the county on this one. It seems you're right about agricultural buildings being able to be erected on certain categories of land, but if it's only purely going to become a mechanical shed, effectively a workshop, although he's working on agricultural vehicles, it doesn't strike me as an agricultural enterprise as such. If it's so I think it would be prudent in this case, because it's going to be a big structure. It's potential to be a bit of an eyesore when you pull into the village, pull through the village, and it's not the safest place in the world to pull out in an agricultural vehicle.
Say that again.
Yeah. And it's noble that he's putting a path in so he doesn't drag mud across the road, but then that field was never really designed for that kind of access and that kind of traffic. It feels like that we may well have lost that field if we let that go ahead. It seems quite disproportionate to the size of the field, and there's also quite a lot of buildings being erected on that land already, and I think to be seen as equitable to everybody in the village, we should perhaps ask if that's acceptable.
That sounds like a very, very sensible solution to me.
But whether or not they'll ever come down, I don't know.
I don't know. Jane, can you make a note to contact the
I
planning
can.
department?
Yep.
Please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I just think that we need to find out. I don't know enough about planning laws and on agricultural land and agricultural buildings, what constitutes an agricultural building and what use you're supposed to make of that particular building. So I think we just need to get advice.
Thank you, B. Yeah. I certainly agree with that. It's a very good idea.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to item 7, the notice board. We've had fun with the notice board. We've looked at logos and we've not liked logos, and I kind of like the River Perrott Trail logo, and then Jane very generously pointed out to me that it just looked like any old river, and which is absolutely true. Well, I don't know how you feel. I'm sort of inclined not to go with the logo at all, really. But what do other people feel?
I quite like the idea of a logo. I thought the church idea, you know, putting the church on the logo was quite a good idea, but I don't know what other people thought at the time.
I still support the church as a logo. I know it's nothing to do with the church, but it's literally the only, well, it's not the only building, but the most significant building of in the village. It's the one you see when you come in from most angles. And I too have played around with the Perrott logo, and it just looks like a small eel or a worm, or right. As much as I've tried, I can't make it look anything better. Whereas the church, maybe an etched image of it could be, but I'm not wedded to that. I like it. I agree with B. It's okay. I just think hopefully it's a once in a 30-year opportunity, assuming that, to put something on there that we don't regret.
Yes, yeah, it's true. Yeah. Steve, have you got any comments? Yeah.
Oh, Yvonne.
I sent the South Perrott logo to Jane. I didn't know if she said something about it.
I saw that, but it didn't actually, it wasn't, its images are used, they weren't actually South Perrott crests or fields. They were just, they have been used, but they're not actually relevant to the village.
Yeah, because I was on the front page of the thingy, that's why I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Bill, what do you think?
Sorry, me, did you say?
Yeah.
Is it the parish notice board?
I think that the issue with the church is the confusion between the church notice board, which is in Church Hill here,
yes,
outside my house, as opposed to the parish council notice board, which obviously is the parish council notice board.
Right. Yes.
And I didn't like that. I didn't like the idea of the church for that reason. I'm willing, like as Jonathan says, willing to be swayed. But sorry, Sue, I can't let you in. Craig.
I don't. You know what? I don't think it matters if the church is on it, whether people think it's the church notice board or whether people think it's the parish council notice board. To me, it's just the notice board.
It will say South Perrott Parish Council on it, won't it?
Yeah, even if it says that. So what difference does it make if it has the church on it? And if people do mistake it as the church notice board, really, we're just putting information on there. What difference is that going to make to any of us, really?
Okay, good argument. I'm swayed.
Yeah, just on another point on that, I'm not entirely convinced the church notice board will be there for that much longer, given the validity of the church. So
yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think the
hang on.
Yeah, I wondered about that. I did wonder about that.
Well,
Sorry,
that's
Can
one
we, can we unmute Martin quickly? That's the Moen House.
This is the village handbook, the history of South Perrott and Cheddington. We just need to select the coat of arms that relate purely to South Perrott. I'm not sure which ones they are, but
And that's the problem.
good.
That's
think
the
it's
problem I
good.
had, Martin.
Yeah.
That's the problem I had, that you can't find which one actually, and whether it matters or not. But I couldn't, having done a bit of research, I can't find which one it is. You might be able to help, but I couldn't find
I
it.
think it's the Daubeny one. It says here. No, you can't see.
Well,
Can't quite see.
oh, you're
Oh,
big now, yeah?
That's better. Oh, you're a bit all over.
What? Back. Keep going back.
Oh, right, okay. Back to front.
Back and up.
Up a bit.
Up. Whoa.
Oh.
Daubeny. Yes, you're right.
I think it's the Daubeny one.
And Moen,
Okay.
surely. It must be
and the
Moen as well.
one, yeah.
Because of
But
Moen House.
That's the two bottom ones, I think.
Yeah,
The
I
two
would think
bottom
so
ones.
too.
The two at the bottom.
Well, yeah.
And that's a bit of history.
I'll be honest with you, I'd rather have the church. Can we go back on?
Church is the only landmark, isn't it, in the village,
Yeah.
really?
Thank you, Jill. Yeah. Can we go back? I'm in a little corner here. Are
Right, you may well need to click on view and
Okay. Right.
gallery
Okay.
view.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm there. Right. I'm going to go to a vote. All those. We have two options. We have the church. No, we have three options. We have the church. We have no logo, and we have a shield. Right. Three options. I don't believe this. All those in favour of nothing at all. That's one. All those in favour of a shield. None. No. Yes. No.
Well, can I
Yvonne. Yeah.
Can I chuck a caveat in? I'm pretty
God.
sure I'm pretty sure the Dorset History Centre, just up the road from my office, will be able to tell us
Okay.
which one it should be with some certainty, because I would hate to be responsible for getting the wrong shield up, like I said, for the next 30 years. I mean, it could become a tourist attraction, the wrong shield on the sign, but I'm a big fan of that shield if we can get the right shield.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going therefore to defer this decision until Jonathan informs us of which shield it is, and then we will make a decision which will have to be ratified at the next meeting, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Before we get too far into this, Jonathan, maybe you can help on this. When I spoke to the notice board company, they say that whatever image we want put on the header, it has to be a vector image.
Yeah, that's
Does that
fine.
make sense to you?
Yeah,
Is that all right?
that's
Is that
absolutely
doable?
fine. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Moving on to, so we know where we are, right? We're getting some more information about the shields, and then we're going to circulate the alternatives, and we can make a decision which will be ratified at the next meeting. Is that acceptable, Jane?
That is absolutely fine. Jonathan, are you going to investigate shields? Am I investigating shields? Who's investigating
I don't
shields?
mind having a chat with them up there. I do know a few of them up there. But just one thing
That's
to enable this to move forward a bit quicker, would it be acceptable if I circulate the findings of that via mail to people and we make a decision over mail on that?
Yes, I think we have to have a public meeting, though, to agree a decision.
Oh, do we? Okay.
That's right, Jane, isn't it?
I'm not sure, David. I would have to find out. I will ask. I don't know.
Well, can I also suggest to members of the public, please, if you wish to express a view on this, please email us. Email Jane.
Thank you.
Three alternatives, remember? No shield church. You got that? Mike Hayes having trouble with that. Is one too many, is it, Mike? Oh, he's got his beer in hand. Okay, fine. Right, I'm going to move on. Lengthsman. We had a discussion last time, about the lengthsman, and there were differing views, and we didn't actually come to a conclusion. I know that B's got major concerns, and I think it's really built around his own personal experience of employment. B, could you express yourself? I know you did that last time, but if you could go through it again for us, please.
I think we all, I mean, even the councillor said there's loads of issues with employing somebody, whether they be self-employed or not. As soon as we advertise a job, we've got a responsibility to that individual in terms of, you know, holidays, giving them a contract, whether it's 0 hours contract or not. So there's loads of employment issues around actually getting someone on board as an employee. So that's the main issue, and I think we discussed that at the last meeting and came to the conclusion that we weren't going to actually employ anybody.
Well, I think that it's, yeah, I mean, it all depends on how you define employment, doesn't it? You seem to have a very strict definition of it.
Yeah, there is a strict definition. If an employment is you advertise a job for somebody to do, an individual to do, and you give them that particular job to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I understand it, if we go down the route, we would have to get people to tender for each bit of work, like clearing the foliage in School Hill. I mean, is that really what it comes down to?
Well, you either want to employ somebody to do that or you don't. And employing somebody comes with a lot of issues. Even on a 0 hours contract, if you give somebody work, say for, I don't know, 30 hours, they're entitled to holiday pay as well as holidays and sick pay to a certain degree.
Well, how come Uber don't and Amazon don't?
Well, that's why they're in court. That's why they're in court at the moment, and I think they've won the battle in terms of employment law, that they are employees.
Well, I don't know. What do other people think?
What I'm trying to say, it's not straightforward, and I've had loads of dealings with HR, employment tribunals, and all sorts where such issues have come up. And as you know, at the last meeting, even Councillor Knox expressed, you know, that we shouldn't be going down that line, because where other villages have gotten down that particular line, they've had loads of issues. Now, I don't actually see a problem taking on somebody to do a specific job at a specific time, or having 3 or 4 people on our books that we can call upon and give quotes to do jobs. Okay.
So in terms of advertising, do we advertise?
Why do you want that?
Well, how are we going to get a pool of 3 or 4 people?
Well, there's probably 3 or 4 people in the village that do jobs.
Well, there are, but how...
as a council, you've got to demonstrate you're getting value for money, and you can't do that unless you allow competitive tender on it.
And you've got to get free quotes anyway. I think it's a standing order that you do that anyway.
Where possible. Yeah.
Well, the conclusion of this is that we shouldn't go ahead with it.
I mean, at the council, we have something called a calling off contract, or where we set up a contract with a company with it's effectively a 0 hour contract that we can call on, and it's we put it out for tender, and we award it to one company at a particular rate with no particular agreement on hours or a maximum hours or minimum hours, but we are able to call on that contract as required. We do it at work, and you know, these people aren't employed, but they're not typically individuals or sole traders. They're normally limited companies or above. So
yeah,
there's a lot to think about. That's the problem. I'm kind of in agreement with B. It's a bit of a minefield for a 5-4 councillor organisation, really, isn't it?
certainly is, yeah. Any other comments, please?
See,
However,
I don't
I do
actually
sup-
see an issue. Sorry.
I do support Martin's suggestion, though, that the village itself could do a lot of this work itself. I really do, and I think it was a good suggestion. You know, I've got a load of street cleaning equipment upstairs. You know, the clippers and the pickers and all of that, and I think we could do a lot of that. Yeah,
we've got hedge clippers and all sorts of stuff.
My problem is that it's not a problem, but it's afraid it will fall on the same people in the village that do everything else. That's my issue. If people are prepared to volunteer to do it, then that's fine, I guess. But
I think we've got quite an influx of new people that will come into the village, and I think that should be encouraged. And I think people, you know, the people that I've spoken to are more than willing to partake in activities that go on within the village, and that may be litter picking, or that may be moving the STIDS sign every 6 weeks to one end to the other. And I think we've got, you know, like I said, I think there's 6 or 7 or 8 new households within the village that have come in. And I think as councillors and, you know, as people that have lived in the village for quite a while, could encourage the new people to come on board.
Okay, fine. Jill, you're a newcomer?
Yes, I am. Yeah, well, I know my husband would be more than happy to help out doing sort of like manual work. I mean, he's told me, but at the moment he's in Yorkshire. He works away and comes back. But in the future, he'd be more than happy to help out. I mean, he's very can-do, sort of, where there's a job to be done, let's just get on and do it type of chap. So, you know, I think there are other people in the village that you just need a bit of encouragement, and, you know, let's have a work party type of thing.
Right.
I know it's difficult with COVID, but it's not impossible.
Well, James has got his thumbs up, so he's volunteering. That's very good. Thank you. And I know Sheila and Mike, they're always helpful. Mike Hayes is, you know, out there and will always provide musical accompaniment.
So it depends what the job is.
Well, that's true. No, it doesn't depend on it. He'll still give you musical accompaniment regardless of what the job is. Well, okay. Well, that's a good debate, and I think a decision's been made. Jane, are you happy with that?
I am. My only question is, who is going to organise it? Is it going to be word of mouth that we need to go and clear the gutter? We need to go and sort out the pavement? How's it going to work? That's my only question on that.
Pump and pan, possibly. Pump and pan. Yeah, pump and pan. Is that a vehicle that where we could suggest? You know, we want volunteers, don't we? We want a list of people, really.
Yeah, indeed.
Does everybody read? I know the pump and pan comes through the door, but I mean, do you actually, whether or not you read everything, would a leaflet through the door, or, you know, just a A4 sheet of paper through everybody's door be better to get response?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
It's not a big village to do a mail drop, is it?
No.
I guess we should ask if there's anyone in the village who would like to organise such events.
Yes.
Like to be like a.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't got a title for it really.
It needs to be someone that people can say, did you know there's a lot of litter in, you know, Pipplepen Lane, for example, and then the organiser can say, great, and he can has the list of people, and he can phone them and say, do you fancy going with your gloves and your litter pickers and going to clearing up? That's what needs to, you know, it's something that needs to be happening.
A quick one, Sue.
You got on. Come on, mute.
I always used to organise the litter
yeah.
once a year, and I know people have been doing that more frequently, and I know they will continue to do so. And I think it's really commendable that everybody does come together. There are so many people that do, but I think your comment, David, I think for a lot of things this will work brilliantly. And I do think it's going to be the same people. Some of the new people will too, because there are enthusiastic ones, but by and large, you'll have a core who are doing everything. I still think maybe if there's money in the budget, you should think about, for certain things where you haven't got the right equipment, just contracting, you know, getting 3 quotes to get extra things done as and when needed. It's not an either or, I wouldn't have thought. So I think it's a good idea,
Yeah.
but that's where I feel.
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. Yeah, Jane.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. Oh.
David, shall I put
Yes.
together a leaflet for a leaflet drop?
That would be wonderful.
a
Yes.
help? Yes. Okay.
I'm more than happy to help with that, Jane, and to distribute them throughout the village.
Fantastic, Jill. We'll be in touch. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That sounds like a really positive way forward. Thank you. Right. I'm going to move on to item 9, if everyone's happy with that. Blair Turner, who is the man in charge of, well, our liaison man, really, with regard to highways issues. And there was an issue in Picket Lane. Martin will know all about this. Large vehicles coming down with slurry from the farm. They have done a fair amount of damage to the verges. And there was some concern over the strength of the bridge, the little bridge which is outside of Martin's house. So we checked up with Blair, and they will come out in the spring and they will look at the damage that's been done to the verges. They will correct any damage that's been done, and they will reseed it. There was a strong argument, which was that there's nothing illegal in what was being done by these agricultural vehicles. Although they were large in size, the bridge can carry that weight. So there's nothing that can be done. I know that was there was a certain amount of antisocial timing with regard to these large vehicles going up and down the lane. I know Martin was aware of some vehicle movements at some pretty antisocial times. But, well, you know, these things happen, I guess. So we haven't let it rest. We did pursue the complaints, and that's the response. It will be sorted come the spring. Okay, I'm moving on to item 10, correspondence.
Nothing very much, Mr. Chairman, apart from the coach and horses correspondence and the planning applications. That's all that's come in.
Okay, thank you. We've dealt with that. Financial status. Jane, do you want to say anything about that?
I've already sent it to you all. Nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Slightly up on some months, but that's because we bought a couple of litter bins and also the trees and shrub scheme that Jill talked about. No income since the last meeting. The precept should arrive in April. The current balance is £7,389.65.
Right. Well, much as we try to get it down, it's still quite big, isn't it? But there we go. Any other comments about the financial position? Okay, I'm moving on then to item 12. Matters of report and items for the next meeting. So this is my moment when I report to you. The first thing I need to say is, as you're probably aware, we have sold our house, and we will be moving in the next 3 months or so. We're not absolutely sure when. I was going to resign at this meeting, but I've been persuaded to stay on a little bit longer. But this will certainly be my last meeting as a member of the council. So it does mean that there will be an opportunity for someone else to come onto the parish council in time for the next meeting. So I hope, Sue, you'll be able to advertise that position in the Pump and Pound. Although, as I say, I'm not actually resigning this moment, but it will be before the next meeting. So may I bear your forbearance and plead with you your forbearance if I just go over a little bit of what's happened over the last, 18 months or so since we started. You'll remember that we were born out of the Perrott Parish Council, which was dissolved through the actions of Cheddington, which is ironic because today they launched a public appeal for money to repair the post box in Cheddington, which was pretty funny given that they've got quite a few thousands of pounds sitting in an account which was left over from the Perrott Parish Council. But they've never got round to forming a parish council, and therefore they haven't got the money. Anyway, Jill's alerted them to this pot, so hopefully they'll get it. I think we've been through a really tough time. COVID has upset everybody really, and most of my period as chairman has been during that COVID period. So we've been having Zoom meetings for virtually the whole time, for which I thank Jonathan particularly for setting these things up and making them run very smoothly indeed. What have we done? Well, I think we've done quite a lot actually in the last 18 months or so. I was delighted that we got a parish council newsletter out during the first COVID lockdown. That seemed to me an important part of our role as a council. We got Pipplepen Lane called Pipplepen Lane instead of School Hill, which was a bit of a joke. If you look on Google, it probably still says School Hill, but I can assure you that the Ordnance Survey is going to change to Pipplepen, and eventually Google will get round to changing it as well. What else have we done? Well, we've kind of got a new notice board, kind of, almost. We've got Sid's road marking. We've sorted the flooding at Sarum. We've got Christmas tree lights. So the council now has a capital asset, 2 boxes of Christmas tree lights. We've had the bridleway repaired, thanks again to other people, particularly to Sue for that. We've got South Perrott in bloom going. We haven't repaired the finger posts, which is a bit of a shame, but I think that's probably a long lost cause. We've acted, I think, in a very honourable way with regard to the planning applications, and obviously the ongoing issues with the pub has occupied a great deal of my time and attention. I tried to persuade us to adopt a village enhancement scheme. My good wife came forward with a scheme, but I hope somebody else takes that on board and runs with it in our absence. She did a fantastic job on getting the trees and shrubs for the village, and thank you for that, Jill. I think we ought to thank Vicky Reid because she stepped in at the very last minute and acted as clerk in our early days as an independent council. But one of the most important things that I think that we've done in my 18 months period is to appoint Jane as clerk. Jane has been an absolute revelation and has been phenomenal in keeping me in line and keeping us in line, and also her efficiency is beyond the pale. So many, many thanks to you, Jane, for that.
You're very welcome.
We've got a website for which, again, I think we've got to thank Jonathan, which is, I think, extremely good, very easy, very accessible. And we've got a fantastic opportunity in the solar farm, which is coming. If things work out, there's going to be some serious money coming into the village. Serious money. And I think you need to consider very carefully how you might want to spend that money. It's on the website. You can work it out for yourselves with a little bit of calculation. It could be the kind of one-off payment that could transform this village if you think very carefully about how it's spent. For me, I didn't volunteer to be on the parish council. I didn't want to be voted on, and I came on at the last minute really to help things out. And that's, I think, what Jill and I have always done in this village, which is to help out as best we can. So it's adieu, not goodbye. Obviously, we're not going very far away. But for now, those are my closing remarks as chairman, and I won't be with you for the next meeting other than as a muted onlooker. Okay, with that, let me move on to Jane's comments about Census Day.
Just a reminder that Census Day is on the 21st of March. I expect many of you have already received your letters and the little cards encouraging you to participate. Please do so. It's really important that we do this. It's a great national record and needs to be done. So please, please fill it in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, what would you like to talk about?
Can I speak on behalf of the other members, if I could be so arrogant? I'd like to thank you, David, for your fantastic stewardship through what has been an incredibly busy period for the council. You've been fundamental in setting it up right from the early days to organising the finance and the issues that were around that, and really just bringing together a great team, and you've made some real differences in many ways. The way that the council now behaves is symptomatic of the way that you've led us, and you leave us in a very strong position with I think a very good attitude as a council, and you've managed to do that totally out of your comfort zone, virtually, and on Zoom, which I know it's been not always easy for you. So I wish you and Jill all the best in your new ventures. I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you, and good luck in your new house.
Very, very kind of you. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Jonathan's just said, and I'd like to wish you luck in your new venture. And we will miss you being on the council, because you have led us really well. I know I wouldn't be on the council if it wasn't for you, you know, and your enthusiasm in the early days. So thank you from me personally, and I'm sure from the other councillors as well.
Thank you, B. Let's not dwell any more on this. I get embarrassed. Thank you very much indeed, though, for your support and for your enthusiasm. And I think particularly, as Jonathan said, we're going to develop well. Can I just say that I added up the number of emails that I dealt with, and it came to 1,573 over the 18-month period, which averages out around 100 a month, which is pretty frightening, really. But there we are. Let's move on. Date of next meeting is, I suggest, the Wednesday, the 12th of May. Okay, put it in your diaries, please. And that will also include the annual general meeting. From memory, that's more or less a financial affair, Jane, isn't it?
That is correct. It precedes this meeting, and it's a short, basic financial meeting.
Okay.
Is that members only, councillors only?
I believe so. Yeah. That's not the village meeting. That's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Right. Now it's time for unmuting for people to raise issues that they wish to discuss at the next meeting. So don't forget to unmute.
As I always say at this point, the pump and pound, which we've referred to during the meeting, any items you have, I'll have them as soon as possible now, but by the very latest, the 22nd of March. So in particular, Angela, what am I saying Angela for? Jane, please can I let me have the casual vacancy? And Martin, I think that's why I said it, I was thinking of Martin, Angela. Martin, could you please let me have the piece on the Environment Agency in your report so that I can include that? We can do that under a separate heading. And I think basically that's all I wanted to say, because Jane, I think it said email you any comments about the logo if the public wants to make any comments on the public.
Absolutely.
About the,
Yep.
Okay, fine.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, any other items that people want to raise for the next meeting? Oh, it's the clock again. The clock is ticking. Okay, well, if there are no more comments, then I'll declare the meeting closed at just after 9, which is brilliant. That's another ambition I've achieved. Okay.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Jane and Jill. Do you want to just stay on a second, if possible?
Jane and Jill, oh gosh.
No,
Right.
no, it's and Dave if you want, but it's just I want
No,
to.
no, I don't want. No,
I need to get Jill's. Okay then. All right then. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Jill, yeah, I just need to get your personal email address so that I can forward on the details so that you can have a councillor address. You'll end up as Councillor Jill Denny at South Perrott Parish Council.org, nothing catchy. And yeah, that's it really. So I haven't got a pen. Hang on, I don't need a pen.
Jonathan, I can send it to you. I've got it. So
Oh, you've got it already, have
you?
you? Oh, that's
Really
fine.
boring one. Really boring.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I'll get that to you straight away.
Lovely. Okay.
And then Jill, we need to. There's a couple of forms for you to sign and things and declarations, but I'll be in touch with you about that as well.
Okay, no worries, Jane. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome on board.
I bet you can hardly wait.
Oh yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Hour and a half.
No, looking forward to hopefully make a difference.
Lovely.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.